The political future of Deputy President Kithure Kindiki is under intense scrutiny.
Kenyan politics has a way of repeating itself. The same political script that many believed ended with the handshake between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga now appears to be resurfacing under President William Ruto's administration. The latest developments surrounding Deputy President Kithure Kindiki have triggered a heated national debate, with many Kenyans asking one difficult question. Is Kindiki slowly being pushed out of power? The discussion intensified after President William Ruto reassigned some of the deputy president's responsibilities to Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi.
Tonight, the political future of Deputy President Kithure Kindiki is under intense scrutiny following reports that key functions associated with his office have been reassigned to Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi. Could Kenya's long-running curse of number 2 be catching up with him just a year before the next general election? Kindiki has since dismissed the reports as fabricated.
Although the president has the constitutional authority to allocate government duties as he deems appropriate, politics is rarely judged by legality alone. It is judged by symbolism, timing, and the message such decisions send. For many observers, this development feels strangely familiar. During Uhuru Kenyatta's second term, then Deputy President William Ruto experienced a remarkably similar situation. Several government functions that had traditionally fallen under the Deputy President's office were gradually transferred elsewhere. Fred Matiang'i was elevated to coordinate and supervise cabinet ministries, effectively becoming one of the most powerful figures in government.
Power struggles and the battles therein have even played out in the public space, and the president complicated the situation with his appointment of Fred Matiang'i to chair a cabinet committee which bolted him to be a super minister and apparently sidelining the deputy president. This is a taste of metal.
At the time, many political analysts argued that Uhuru was deliberately reducing Ruto's influence within government as political differences between the two leaders widened. Despite the frustrations, William Ruto chose not to resign. Instead, he remained in office, presented himself as a victim of political persecution, continued building grassroots support, and ultimately won the presidency in 2022. Now, critics argue that Kithure Kindiki may be experiencing a similar political reality.
The tactics of the head of state, he does not want to sack Kindiki. But what he's doing is frustrating him. And those sentiments made by Gachagua are exactly what is happening, because we have overheard Kindiki saying they want to push us so that we can get out of this government. But we insist that we are not going. We made this government. Oparanya found us here, and therefore we are going to remain. It tells inside the kitchen there is a lot of fire and a lot of frustrations. And these frustrations are castigated to the deputy president so that he can resign. This tells you his goose is cooked.
Whether that comparison is entirely accurate remains open to debate. There has been no official announcement suggesting that Kindiki has been stripped of the constitutional powers of his office. However, in politics, perception often matters just as much as reality. When key responsibilities shift away from a deputy, many people naturally begin questioning the deputy's standing within the administration. The timing of this latest decision has only intensified speculation. The country is gradually moving toward the 2027 general election. Political alliances are being reviewed, regional voting blocs are becoming increasingly important, and every move by senior political leaders is being interpreted through the lens of electoral strategy. This is where speculation surrounding an ODM running mate enters the conversation. For months, political circles have discussed the possibility that President Ruto could seek to broaden his support base by selecting a deputy from ODM before the next election. One of the names repeatedly mentioned in these discussions is Wycliffe Oparanya, owing to his senior position in government, his political experience, and his influence in Western Kenya. It is important to emphasize that these remain political speculations. Neither President Ruto nor ODM has officially announced any intention to replace Deputy President Kindiki or confirmed Oparanya as a future running mate. Nevertheless, Speculation has continued because coalition politics often involves strategic calculations long before official declarations are made. Why would such speculation arise in the first place? The answer lies in Kenya's electoral arithmetic. Winning the presidency is not simply about individual popularity. It also depends on assembling regional voting blocs that can produce a nationwide majority. Every presidential candidate carefully studies where additional votes can be gained and where weaknesses need to be addressed. If President Ruto believes that expanding his appeal into regions traditionally associated with ODM would strengthen his chances of re-election, some analysts argue that choosing a running mate from that political space could become an attractive option. At the same time, replacing a sitting deputy president would not be a simple political decision. Kithure Kindiki has invested significant political capital in defending government policies, especially after assuming office. He has traveled extensively, represented the president in numerous state functions, and consistently projected loyalty to the administration. Removing such a deputy could create political consequences of its own. First, it could alienate sections of Mount Kenya East, where Kindiki commands respect. Second, it could create uncertainty within UDA by raising concerns about internal loyalty and political security. Third, it could revive memories of the fallout between Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, a conflict that eventually weakened Jubilee and reshaped Kenya's political landscape. Another interesting dimension is the growing prominence of Musalia Mudavadi. Over the past several months, Mudavadi has increasingly taken on major government assignments and represented Kenya in high-level international engagements. The latest transfer of additional responsibilities further reinforces his position as one of the administration's most influential figures. This does not necessarily mean that Mudavadi is replacing Kindiki politically. However, it undoubtedly strengthens his visibility within government at a time when succession politics and coalition negotiations are becoming increasingly significant. One question many Kenyans are asking is whether Kindiki should respond politically. History offers two different lessons. William Ruto remained in office despite facing what he described as systematic isolation under Uhuru Kenyatta. He avoided resigning, continued engaging with supporters, and eventually converted his political difficulties into an electoral advantage. Kindiki could choose a similar path by maintaining loyalty, avoiding public confrontation and focusing on government delivery while allowing political events to unfold naturally. Alternatively, if he believes his political space is shrinking significantly, pressure from supporters could eventually mount for him to reconsider his future. At the moment, however, there is no public indication that he intends to resign. Ultimately, what Kenyans are witnessing may not necessarily be a personal conflict. It could simply reflect the normal restructuring of government responsibilities. Equally, it could be an early indication of larger political realignments ahead of 2027. Only time will reveal which interpretation proves correct. One thing is certain: Kenyan politics rarely remains static. Every administrative decision, every appointment, and every reassignment becomes part of a much bigger political puzzle. As the next general election approaches, alliances will continue evolving, loyalties will be tested, and strategic decisions made today could determine the country's political direction for years to come. Do you believe President Ruto is simply reorganizing his government? Or are these changes a sign that Kithure Kindiki could eventually be replaced as deputy president before the 2027 elections? Share your thoughts in the comments.